Welcome to APCUG's Wednesday workshops, where we get together in the middle of the week to learn more about technology. I'm very excited about our presenter today. I've known him for a number of years. I've even had a chance to meet him in person, which was a real treat. Hewie Poplock is a retired teacher, college instructor, business owner, IT manager, and web designer. He remains active in technology user groups, frequently speaking to teaching groups mainly comprised of us seniors. With hundreds of instructional videos on YouTube, Hewie enjoys sharing his technology knowledge, which I can tell you is vast. Hewie first joined the Tampa Bay Osborne user group back in '82, amazed at the collaborative spirit among computer users. Upon purchasing his first PC, he joined the Pinellas IBM PC user group, remaining an active member until moving to Orlando, Florida back in '87. There, Hewie joined the Central Florida Computer Society, serving as president 4 times and longtime program chair. He chairs the Windows Special Interest Group and gives monthly remote Windows SIG presentations to both CFCS and the STUG members. Even after moving to Sarasota area, Hewie's also a vice president of the Sarasota Technology User Group, that's the STUGs. His leadership extends to the Association of Personal Computer User Groups, where he served as vice president and webmaster. He's a past president of the FACUG as well. Today, Hewie focuses on senior citizens, his companions. Recently discovering how the Google operating system satisfies most parents and grandparents' needs, he also hosts the weekly Tech for Seniors and Tech for Seniors Live, and has his monthly Learning Chromebooks webcast along with Ron Brown. Hewie also immerses himself in artificial intelligence, eagerly sharing that knowledge too. As co-host for Tech for Seniors Live, and Learning Chromebooks, Hewie enjoys utilizing his APCUG Speakers Bureau membership to present to member groups worldwide. Today, he's going to talk to us about something that we probably just think is a little thing that sits around there. We're going to talk about the SD card. And as for me, it just, well, there's an SD card, not much to it. It's just something you stick in somewhere. But Hewie's going to talk to us all about what we need to know about SD cards. So Hewie, share with us.
I will do so. I hope. Come on. We should be good.
I think so.
What you need to know about SD cards. I am Hewie Poplock, and welcome, and let's get started. These are some examples of some SD cards. An SD card is a small portable memory storage device used in digital devices such as cameras, smartphones, tablets, and more. It provides a convenient way to store and transfer data such as photos, videos, music, documents, and other files. SD cards come in various sizes and capacities, and they use flash memory technology to store that data. They are compatible with a wide range of devices and can be easily removed and replaced. SD cards are also available in different types, such as SD, SDHC, and SDXC, each with different capacity limits. Additionally, SD cards can be protected by a password or encryption for increased security. An SD card, short for Secure Digital Card, is a type of small portable memory card that's commonly used in digital cameras, smartphones, and other electronic devices to store data such as photos, videos, music, and documents. SD cards are available in a variety of capacities, ranging from a few gigabytes to several terabytes. They are also available in different physical sizes including the standard SD, the mini SD, and the micro SD. SD cards use flash memory technology, which allows them to retain data even when the power is turned off. They also have built-in security features to protect against unauthorized access and data corruption. SD cards are the most common memory card type used in digital cameras. Having been around for more than 20 years, this type of camera memory card is readily available, relatively cheap, and capable of performing well enough in cameras designed for beginners right through professional users. There are several factors to consider when comparing SD cards, including capacity, speed, and durability. Capacity refers to the amount of storage space on the card. Measured in gigabytes, higher capacity cards store more data, but they also tend to be more expensive. Speed is another important factor to consider. SD cards have different speed class ratings, such as a class 4 or class 10, which indicates the minimum write speed of the card. A higher speed class rating means the card can write data faster, which is important for things like recording high definition video. Durability is another important consideration. SD cards can be susceptible to damage from water, heat, and other environmental factors. Some cards are designed to be more durable than others, with features like waterproofing and shock resistance. Overall, the choice of SD card will depend upon the specific needs of the user. If you need a high capacity, fast, and durable card, you may want to consider a high-end SD card with a high speed class rating and durability features. Here's a chart talking about pretty much what we just talked about. And so I'm not going to go through this chart. All of the slides will be available from Judy later on when she gets it out to you. The read and write speed of an SD card refers to how quickly data can be transferred to and from the card. The read speed, also known as transfer speed, is the rate at which data can be retrieved from the card, measured in megabytes per second, MB/s. The write speed is the rate at which data can be written to the card, also measured in megabytes per second. And by the way, if it's a capital B, it's megabytes. If it's a small b, it's megabits, which are 8. There are 8 megabits, or there are 8 bits to a byte. Okay, the speed of an SD card is determined by a number of factors, including the technology used in the card, the capacity of the card, and the SD card speed class. SD card speed class is a rating system that indicates the minimum guaranteed write speed of the card. The speed classes are 2, 4, 6, and 10. UHS-1, speed class 1, UHS-1, speed class 3, and UHS-2, speed class 1 and 3. The read speed of an SD card is usually much faster than the write speed. A card with a higher read speed would be good for transferring large files quickly, while a card with a high write speed would be good for recording video or taking lots of photos in quick succession. It's worth noting that the read and write speeds can vary depending upon the specific card and the device it's being used in. And also, read and write speeds are not always the same. Some cards can have different high read speed, but a low write speed, or vice versa. Although the physical size and shape of the SD card have not changed since the launch in 1999, The format's internal specifications have gone through several iterations. Flash memory technology has also evolved, delivering improved reliability and significantly increased speeds. The improvements are welcome, but it has created a problem. The continuous evolution of SD card standards has given birth to a host of symbols and classes used to describe the type of SD card and its speed. It's not uncommon to find an SD card marked with 6 or 7 different symbols, making it difficult for people to understand precisely what they're buying. I'm trying to demystify these symbols and ensure you that so you'll know what you are buying and whether it's suitable for your camera or device. Some memory card manufacturers quote SD card speeds in megabytes per second, while others, such as Lexar, prefer to quote a speed factor like 1000x. This is confusing for the consumer because it makes it harder to compare SD card speeds between two brands. Idiotic origins of SD card speed factor. This speed factor naming scheme is a hangover from the days of CD-ROM drives, where the standard drive reads CDs at 150 kilobytes per second. Therefore, 1x is equal to 150 kilobytes per second, and 1000x is equal to 150 megabytes per second. Isn't that ridiculous? In an era where some of the photographers are an age where they won't even remember or don't even know what a CD-ROM drive is, a few brands use their speeds to gauge modern flash memory speeds. This idiotic practice of quoting SD card speed based on speeds of CD-ROM drives appears to have stopped with the advent of the CF Express cards. And again, here's another chart showing the different classes and the minimum write speeds. Obviously, those increase in speeds. An SD card class is simply a way to define the minimum continuous write speed of the card. This is not a maximum peak speed, but an actual minimum continuous write speed that any device, camera or not, can count on having available with any SD card. The minimum continuous write speed is critical because if your camera shoots 4K or 8K video, you need to use a card that at the very least delivers a minimum continuous write speed fast enough to record those formats. The complication is that the SD Card Association has changed how they represent sustained minimum write speed 3 times. They started by calling cards Class 2, Class 6, or Class 10, by which they meant they were capable of a minimum sustained write speed of 2 megabytes per second, 6 megabytes per second, or 10 megabytes per second. And you can see how they were indicated on the cards by what I circled. Then they updated this. They just said that there was too many letters to write on the SD cards. So they changed it to use the USD card class standard. And things took the form of a U1 and U3. In these examples, U1 corresponds to a minimum sustained speed of 10 megabytes per second, and the U3 is 30 megabytes per second. Essentially, divide by 10 and stick a U in front of it. While I agree that writing U1 on a card is easier than writing class 10, both have the same 10 megabyte per second specification, the problem is that the SD card manufacturers just started to put them both on the card. In their eyes, the more symbols on a card, that's better. Unfortunately, it's even dumber because we now see the card manufacturers putting completely extraneous symbols on SD cards. For example, they all carry the C10, class 10 symbol and the U3 symbol. U3 guarantees a minimum write speed of 30 megabytes per second, and the C10 guarantees a 10 megabytes per second. Naturally, you cannot reach U3 standards without also delivering the C10 standards. It's common sense. But card manufacturers insist on adding the extra symbol for fear that a competitor's card might look better if it were to carry the symbol when their card did not. So if you thought this couldn't get worse, you're wrong. To confuse the issue even more, the U standard was swapped for the V standard. Now we have V30, V60, and V90 SD cards that guarantee minimum sustained write speeds of, you guessed it, 30 megabytes per second, 60 megabytes per second, and 90 megabytes per second. And sure enough, these symbols are stuck onto the card alongside the other ones. The result is a cluttered mess that's confusing for us consumers, so let's simplify things. And here's a chart that does it. So you can see that 10 megabyte per second is a class 10 or a C10, a U speed of 1 or a V speed of 10. So if a card, and notice this is in bold, if a card carries a V30, a V60, or a V90 symbol, this is the only speed-related symbol you need to pay attention to. Of all the U classes and class 10 nonsense are meaningless. Any card with a V30, a V60, or V90 class will automatically pass all of the other SD card class standards below it. These days, following this simple guide will allow you to determine the relative speeds of 95% of the SD cards on the market. And it's more likely the manufacturer of your camera will have specified a minimum write speed in the manual or online specifications of either V30, V60, or V90. Another SD card performance indicator is whether the card uses UHS, ultra high speed, bus 1 or 2 configuration. The UHS 1 cards are limited to theoretical maximum speeds of 104 megabytes per second and are cheaper to manufacture. UHS 2 SD cards are faster and theoretically capable of reaching speeds up to 312 megabytes per second. And you'll notice in the drawing there, or in the image, the UHS 1 card on the left and the UHS 2 card on the right, and their pins are different. There are two ways to distinguish between the UHS 1 and the UHS 2 SD cards. Firstly, the card will either have "an" or "all" marked on the front. Usually this symbol will be marked alongside the type of SD card. For example, it may say HD or SDHC 2 or SDXC. Secondly, unlike the other SD card performance differentiators, such as U or V speed classes, there's also a physical difference between the UHS 1 and the UHS 2, which I just showed you in the previous slide. So looking back at the back of an SD card, the UHS 1 card will have a single row of metal contacts, where the UHS 2 card will have 2 rows. To be honest, I've never seen one with the 2 rows. So here's a chart of the UHS speeds for SD cards and their minimum write speeds. These are minimum speeds, and actual performance can vary depending upon the factors such as the specific card and the device it's being used in. Also keep in mind, UHS 2 cards are backward compatible with UHS 1 devices, but they will operate at the lower UHS 1 speeds and require a UHS 2 speed compatible device to take advantage of their higher speeds. SD cards have evolved over the years with newer versions and standards, including faster speeds and higher capacities. Some of the key SD card standards include SD from 1999, SDHC in 2006, SDXC in 2009, as well as UHS-1 in 2009, and then 2011, UHS-2 and UHS-3 in 2017, and that supports a faster bus speed up to 624 megabytes per second. The choice between an XC2 SD card and a UHS-2 SD card depends on the device's compatibility and the user's needs for data transfer speed. The latest SD cards nowadays typically support capacities of up to 1 terabyte and speeds of up to 300 megabytes per second or faster. Top-of-the-line SD cards utilize UHS-2 or UHS-3 interfaces. New SD Express cards were also announced in 2019, supporting up to 985 megabytes per second read speeds using the PCIe interface. However, these are not yet widespread. Today's high-performance SD cards support very high capacities and speeds, with new standards and interfaces continuing to push the envelope. There is a certain amount of backwards compatibility between the UHS-1 and UHS-2. You can use either card type in any camera or SD card reader that accepts an SD card. The critical thing to understand is that both the device and the SD card must be UHS-2 compatible if you want to unlock that additional speed benefits of the UHS-2 interface. So if you put a UHS-2 card in a camera that is only a UHS-1, it will only go to the speed of that UHS-1, but at least it will work. If you put a faster and more expensive UHS-2 SD card into a camera or card reader that it's only rated for UHS-1, which is what I just said, the card will be limited to the UHS-1 speed of 104 megabytes per second. Or if you use a cheaper UHS-1 SD card in a more expensive UHS-2 card reader, your photos will still download at the slower speed delivered by UHS-1. If your camera is only rated to a UHS-1, you might not see the in-camera speed benefits of buying a more expensive UHS-2 SD card. However, it may still be worthwhile investment if you want to speed up your image ingestion and editing workflow. After a long day of shooting, to a high-capacity SD card, such as 128 gigabyte, 256 gigabyte, or even a 512 gigabyte, having a UHS-2 card and card reader will still save you upwards of 20 to 30 minutes of downloading time. While cameras rely on sequential reading and writing for photos, with data stored in sequential blocks on the SD card, devices accessing application data are more concerned with random read and write speeds. They are forced to read or write data from blocks scattered throughout the flash memory in the card. Random reads and writes are slower than sequential actions and are measured in IOPS, or input-output access per second. The U and the V SD card classes and maximum read and write speeds give photographers everything they need to know about sequential read and write performance in a camera. Application performance class, A1 or A2, does the same thing for people using SD cards to expand the storage and run applications on their phones. It should be noted that an SD card can carry many different classifications, as I've said several times in this presentation. A card can have an A1 or an A2 symbol, a U or a V video classification. If you look at the app class specifications, you'll also see that sequential write minimums are very low, 10 megabytes per second, corresponding to only a class 10 or U1 or V1 classification. In other words, it doesn't take much for a card to be given an A1 or an A2 classification, so long as they also reach the IOPS minimum speeds. Another point of confusion that often arises while discussing or researching memory card or hard drive speeds is the bits and bytes. As I said earlier, megabytes means megabytes per second, and with the small b means megabits per second. Sometimes these are also written as capital M, capital B, small ps, or capital M, small b, pps, to confuse things even further. And again, another chart showing the same things that we've been talking about. You've got the SD secure digital card that run between 128 megabytes to 2 gigabytes. The SDHC secure digital high capacity run from 4 gigabytes to 32 gigabytes. SDXC, the secure digital extended capacity, 64 gigabytes to 2 terabyte. And SDUC, secure digital ultra capacity, card capacities of up to 128 terabytes. So as you can see in that last slide, from a consumer standpoint, the primary difference between an SD, SDHC, SDXC, and SDUC cards is the potential capacity. Although we call all of these SD cards, it's scarce to see an SD card on the market anymore. Technically, they died out more than a decade ago. Most of the time you see the SDHC cards if it has a capacity below 64 gigabytes, or SDXC cards if they have a capacity above 64 gigabytes. As for the SDUC, although the standard exists, you probably have never seen one for sale, so it's safe to ignore that type of SD card now. So the compatibility, the SD card type compatibility, the SDUC memory cards can only be used with SDUC card slots in cameras or other devices. The SDXC memory cards can be used with the SDXC and SDUC. The SDHC memory cards can be used with SDHC, SDXC, and SDUC devices. So the SDHC probably is your best bet, unless you really need that, the other devices. SD memory cards can be used with SD, SDHC, SDXC, and SDUC devices. Okay, the SD host device compatibility. So this is just the reverse way of putting it. So depending upon your device is going to be depend upon which cards you can use and which are going to give you the best results. So as you can see from that slide, there are some compatibility considerations, but thankfully it's not nearly as complex as it might seem. Most cameras built after 2010 will still have an SDXC card slot. In other words, they are an SDXC host device. This means that they will be compatible with all SDCX and SDHC cards. Plain old SD cards aren't sold anymore, and you're likely not to see an SDUC card either, which means that most cameras have been built since 2010, and indeed all cameras made since around 2015 have SD card slots that will work just fine with the two types of SD cards you'll find on the store shelves, the SDHC and SDXC. In the end, out of all the little symbols that are stamped on an SD card, this one is perhaps the least important. So just get the SD card capacity that's right for you and double check that your camera will support it. The answer will be yes for 99.9% of you. Now, the micro SD cards are much smaller than the SD cards, but you can use them and place them in an SD card when combined with a micro SD to SD card adapter. These adapters look like a regular SD card, but have a tiny slot in them into which you can insert the micro SD card. These adapters are cheap and readily available at most electronic retailers. In some cases, they're included with the micro SD card. And again, here's all of the different levels in here, but remember that it's the A indicator that, or the V indicator that you're concerned with. The video speed class, or V30 on this card, is the important thing. And you also want to look at the capacity, which tells you it's 512 gigabytes. These were the speed classes with the in a C for class 2, 4, 6, and 10, and the UHS speed classes in the U of a 1 and a 3. But again, it's the V class that we're now concerned with. And here are some of my SD cards. I took this a while ago. I do now have some bigger than this. But I have an SD card holder that I got from Amazon, which I really like. And you'll notice that the mini SD cards fit in a little slot in the foam underneath, and then you can put the adapter on top of it and have it readily available. So a lot of times I just need a card quickly, and I'll go in here and grab the card that I need. Now, the SD card readers in a computer could be a regular SD slot or the mini SD slot, depending upon your computer. And then the SD card with the mini that goes in the adapter. And it's going to be the mini that's going to say it's a V30, not the adapter. The adapter can work with any of them. Now, there's also such things as SD card readers. If your computer doesn't have an SD card reader, or you have cards that may not fit in the reader, you can get, in your computer, you can get a reader that will accept several sizes. Here is one, for instance, and here are several different ones from different brands that will hold different sizes. And here's an article that kind of shows you what the different plugs are on it and what goes into them. Now, this is a 7-in-1 card reader. It has a compact flash slot, which is an older type style, but you may still have some compact flash discs around or cards, and you may want to use them. You got the SD card and, of course, the mini. And then we were talking earlier, before all of you joined, that there's the MS at the bottom, which was the Sony card that was only good in Sony machines and never became a standard, but you might have some of them around as well. So you can use this reader for 7 different types of cards. I want to repeat, this is the important paragraph on this whole presentation. If a card carries a V30, a V60, or V90 symbol, this is the only speed-related symbol you need to pay attention to. All of the U classes and class 10 nonsense are meaningless. Any card with a V30, a V60, or V90 class will automatically pass the other SD card class standards below it. These days, following that simple guide will allow you to determine the relative speeds of 95% of the SD cards on the market. And it's more likely the manufacturers of your camera will have specified a minimum write speed in the manual or online specifications of either a V30, a V60, or a V90. RTFM, read the manual. A little background on me. As was stated in my introduction, I am the leader of the Windows Special Interest Group we've combined 2 clubs for that group, and it's the second Sunday of every month, which is this Sunday. If you want to be signed up for the newsletter and be able to get the link to register, just go to hewie.net. You can register for my newsletter, which hasn't been sent out for Sunday's meeting yet. And in there will be the link to register for the meeting. If you have already registered for a meeting of the WinSig, you are still registered. It is a continuing registration. And then myself and Ron Brown also host Tech for Seniors every Monday. We have a big crew now. We have several people you know, and by all means, it's we've been doing it now for 175 weeks. So every Monday, depending upon your time zone, but in the Eastern time zone, we open at 11:30. We start at noon. Tech for Senior Live as we go over the technology news of the week, and it's on YouTube and Facebook, not on Zoom. And then Learning Chromebooks is the 4th Thursday of the month at 2 o'clock. And this month it will be August 24th. And if you want more information, go to www.techforsenior.com. And so what you need to know about SD cards and then some was brought to you today. And I'm Hewie Poplock. And if we have any questions, I'll now entertain them. And I'll stop the share.
And as I said when I did the introduction, I just thought these little SD cards were just little simple plain cards. But wow, what a lot of letters to think through.
Yes.
I have a question. What can we do when the card no longer can be read and the data is inaccessible?
Throw it away. That's all you can do. There are some programs out there who will try to read them. I've not experienced that. I even had an SD card go through the wash in the pocket of one of my pairs of pants, and when it dried out, I just put it in a machine, copied everything off of it. It worked. Copied everything off of it and then threw it away, because not knowing if there was any permanent damage, I didn't want to continue to use it. I also had one that kind of separated. I used it so many times that it started to separate. So before I couldn't get to the data, I put it in, copied it all to a computer and then copied it back out to another SD card.
I just recently found a nice clean $20 bill in a pair of pants that I washed and dried.
Ooh.
Anyway, if I had a whole bunch of SD cards around, and I really don't take pictures hardly at all, so I bundled them all up, asked my teacher kid to ask the digital photo class instructor that also does the yearbook if she could use them, and she was ecstatic. It was something that she did not need to go out and buy. So if you have a lot of them that you are not using, you might want to think about contacting your high school or even your junior high. And it didn't make any difference how big or small they were.
And a lot of IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, are utilizing them for extra storage, or just for to be able to store some things, or to have some programs, extra programs on, and so on. I know some of the TVs now have them. Some of the boxes, the Roku box that I have, I can put an SD card in, and I think there's my Fire Stick, I think, or my Fire Box, I think I can put in extra SD cards. So there are other uses for them. Don't just throw them out, even if they're an older, small size. And it's also, if you're going to swap files with somebody, as long as you've got a reader and they got a reader, you can swap those a lot easier, even than one of the sticks.
Yeah, I was going to say that for the Linux side, where we've done a lot with bootable thumb drives to run Linux off of something, that it works just as well off of the SD card. And it's better because since it sticks in the computer and doesn't stick out, there's no chance of bumping it and yanking on it. So those can make good use there too.
And that SD card holder that Hewie showed us, when I taught my digital photography class, adult ed stuff, I recommended, because I have learned it from someplace else, that when traveling, they didn't want to take their laptop. They didn't really want to take any type of big electronic stuff. So I suggested that they have several SD cards, and they use, when they went to Italy and they took all the pictures there, that they take that SD card out and put it in their SD card holder and use it as their backup. And it was the original thing, but they didn't need to take it like a laptop or iPad or anything to put it on. What is the cost of a 128 terabyte SD card?
I'll leave it to somebody to look it up while we're on here. I don't know the prices off the top of my head. One thing I do is when Amazon is having their Prime days, a lot of times there's some really good specials on SD cards, and sometimes I'll buy a few of them at a really good price.
Which SD cards or micro SD cards have security sliders?
I think they all do. I'm not sure.
Is it possible to rewrite the micro SD card to the GPS in the car's unit?
Ask that question again, please.
Is it possible to rewrite the micro SD card in the GPS in the car's unit? I'm assuming your GPS.
I don't know. I don't have one built in. I have a Garmin GPS, and I believe it has a card, but I never have a reason to use it. So I think I've got one in it, but I don't ever use the SD card. You can take them out, get the data off of them, I believe, and reformat them and put a different one in. I think the maps might be stored on them and updatable in some, but most of those should be internal to the GPS.
Can you recommend a utility for checking the SD card?
John, help me with that. I'm not sure. I think anything that you normally check a hard drive with can probably check an SD card.
That would be my answer.
This is the other John. I have used a utility that was provided from SanDisk's website to actually find errors and recover photo files from cards that had been corrupted. I believe about a year ago, I looked for it again, and SanDisk had removed it from their website. I'm sorry, I can't give you any more recent information than that.
Apparently, you can also use them in Raspberry Pi stuff. Has anyone seen any fake SD cards?
Pink?
Fake, F-A-K-E.
Oh, fake. Yes, I have. And I've had SD sticks as well that come from some of those cheap places that you can order from overseas. And it'll say that it's so many gigabytes, and in reality, it isn't. And you don't find out until it starts filling up. So you got to be very careful who you buy them from.
And we have a comment about Amazon has announced another Prime Day in October. So put that on your list. SD cards on your list of things to order. Put it in your cart before, the end of Prime Day, just in case the price goes down towards the end of when they stop really doing Prime stuff. Kurt Trout, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello,
Yes,
Kurt.
Kurt, go ahead. You got to unmute yourself.
He went away.
No, he's over to he moved. He put his hand down.
I know, but then he moved. On my screen, he goes away. Okay, John Samuels.
Hi, I'd just like to mention that the Flex Radio uses an SD card inside of it to hold its internal settings. And they've had problems with them, and they do have one called an industrial version that they're using now. It's supposed to last longer with more writes to it. Apparently, there's a limit of the number of writes you can do to the card. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Bill Ginsburg. Bill Ginsburg, it's your turn.
I'm going to go back to Kurt since I was the one that knocked Kurt off.
Oh, John.
Oh, okay.
Okay, a couple of comments. An SD card, one of the variants is the quote hard drive for a Raspberry Pi. That's where the operating system normally lives. Although some Raspberry Pi 4s can boot off of a USB stick. Somebody asked about the cost of a 128 terabyte SD card. Let me know when you find it. It's going to be astronomical. 128 gigabyte SD cards are available, and the price is going to vary widely depending upon where you buy them and the brand. If you are lucky enough to be within driving distance of a Micro Center, they have their own brands that are generally quite economical and very frequently go on sale. So you can save yourself quite a bit there.
Thank you.
Bill Ginsburg, honest, it's your turn. There you go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
If you donate an SD card, and if it's a used card, be sure you wipe off your data first.
Absolutely.
And Mike, over by me, living the good life in Camarillo.
Hello, folks. First of all, thank you very much to Hewie. I learned so much, and the point that he made about the V series was the only number you had to pay attention. Luckily, I bought 2 micro SD cards last week, and I guessed right, but you would have saved me a lot of heart muscle and cross-eyed had I known that beforehand. A couple of just quick hitters following up on something Samuel said. I bought a dash cam for my car about 2 years ago, and I thought you could just pop any old micro SD card into it. However, when you read the fine print, they say use the ones that are rated for extreme, and it's probably what Samuel was talking about. As you know, in a parked car near the roof, you're getting temperatures over 140 degrees Fahrenheit. You've got the vibration and multiple recordings on top of one another. So anybody who's looking for a dash cam SD card, make sure you get the ones that are labeled extreme. And the last point I was just going to bring up for those who are interested in this stuff was another thing that confused me. There is a website called sdcard.org, and they sell, or they don't sell, they give away formatters. So I don't know how critical it is to use a formatter specifically designed for an SD card, but I think Windows can do it properly most of the time. But again, this is beyond what I know, but I throw that out there in case it is important.
Jerry
Thank you.
Crow.
I'm trying to, there. First time I tried it, I couldn't unmute. Thank you, Judy. 2 things. First, I don't know if Huey remembers, I've got some compact flash cards. Those things are, I forgot when they quit making those. I've got 2 or 3, and I've got one of those multiple card reader things that lets me read it. But the other thing I wanted to mention that I use micro SD cards for, I'm going to hold this up in front of my camera and hope that people can see it. You see that little thing there? It's on a,
Yeah, right in front of your face, Jerry. put it right in front of your face and we'll be able to see it.
Okay, there we go. You see that? Thank you for that
Yes.
hint.
Yes.
Okay, that holds micro SD cards. Okay. And I carry it on my keychain. Oh, whoops, I still got my IEEE background there. Let me turn from a meeting the other day. I carry one of those on my keychain, and so I'm constantly carrying it in case somebody wants to give me a file or something. I've only had to use this thing about 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 in the last several years. But you know, I've just got it on my keychain all the time, and I'm carrying 128 gigabytes of storage around with me in this little tiny thing, and it's a micro SD card in a USB adapter. So anyway, they're on Amazon. You can find them there if you are interested at all. They're like
Yeah,
$10. They're not very expensive.
That's handy. Thank you.
Yeah.
I carry a little USB thing on my keychain. Always have. High visibility green. Jean Olson, question please, or comment. Unmute yourself, please.
Space bar.
I had a pop-up that was in my way. I was curious about durability standards. I was amazed to find out that there were the A1 and A2 IOP standards, which are just exactly what I'd want for an RPI, or Raspberry Pi. Are there any durability standards similar to that?
I have no idea.
Bert,
Okay.
do you have an answer?
Anybody?
When you buy a SSD, you get, how many writes it will sustain before it fails. And that's something that's really useful on a computer. And I wondered if there was anything like that for SD cards.
John, you're not, John Kraut, you're shaking your head yes. Do you know of something?
I know 2 things. One is there is a limit, and 2 is the manufacturers hate to disclose that information.
Okay, thank you.
And JJ, you're on.
JJ is on. I have several Wise cameras around the house that uses the micro SD cards for recording events around the house. I know Bill James is probably doing the same. And as for the CF cards, I still have a couple old Nikon cameras that still use the old CF cards, and they're still around from some cameras. Also, I priced the 128 gigabyte cards, and depending on where you get them from, they range from $22 to about $189 if you go for the Extreme. I recently had to purchase the Extreme because I recently got the new DJI drone that records in 4K, so it needs the high-speed card for recording when you're doing 4K recording.
And hopefully when it crashes, it doesn't hurt the card and you can use it in the next one.
Hopefully this drone doesn't crash. And it's avoidance.
And according to how stuff works, you can rewrite and erase an SD card 10,000 times. And that would be like 30 years. I couldn't find a date for that statement. Steve Parker, you're on.
Yeah, with SSD drives, you have a certain number of bits per cell. Most drives today are like 3 bits per cell.
You're talking about SSD drives, correct?
Is it the same sort of thing with the SD cards? Like, do they have, because it is flash memory, right? The same type of memory that's in the SSD drives. So why don't they, or is there a bits per cell number that they have for that SD memory?
I don't have any idea. Anybody? Nope. Chat GPT and hope it's the right answer.
Or just use Google's Bard.
Or Bard, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Hewie, thank you for the great presentation. I'm sure everybody learned a whole bunch of new information that they had absolutely no clue about. We appreciate, you giving it all of that new information to